Schedule negotiations so we can all just enjoy some pie and ice cream. Oh, well, we're all here. We might as well try to make the best of it. Okay, it's a little after 4, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I know Bruce is away, so he sends his regrets. I'm not sure about Tom. Okay. Oh, that's right. I did know that. He's working the World Cup, so good for him. Okay, well, just real quick, I'll go around the room here. Again, welcome back, everyone. I think this is an opportune time for us to meet. Dust is settled in Topeka. Got a little bit more information about insurance and staffing, and so I think this is as good a time as any to jump back into this. In the room, we have Angela Hanson from Pioneer Ridge, Leslie's here from the high school, Mandy's here from Trail Ridge, Bev is here from Sunflower, Robbie's here from Nike. Again, Bruce Haber's out, Tony Taylor's here from the high school, Denise is here from Trail Ridge, Tom Redden, board president's out. We've got Lana Sutton here. Heath Freeman's here, Dr. Huff's here, Amy D's here, I'm here. Thanks to Deb Starling and to Patrick for helping out and getting the meeting up and running. Okay. All right. Before I jump into the agenda, any opening remarks or thoughts from anybody here? Okay. Well, again, welcome to everybody. We obviously have a number of unresolved items. I think I sent in my email to both negotiation teams. We can probably do this a couple ways. We can go through and quickly touch on all the unresolved items so everybody's aware, or we can just kind of take them one at a time. Or I guess the third option is we could bounce around. So I'm open to how we want to make this a productive meeting.
We're gonna give you a fourth option,
Okay.
maybe. Okay. At the end of our last meeting, we gave you our package, and then you responded to the items in our package.
Yep.
And there were 3 items in that package that the BOE team respectfully declined. And what we are requesting to start today is that the BOE team rescind the respectfully declined statements regarding those 3 items, and I can refresh what those are again. We believe that these are important conversations that still need to be had, and there are still negotiations that I actually think that we can have some agreement on and reach some resolution to that can take place over these items. And we'd like to be able to negotiate all the items in the package that GENEA presented on, which I believe was April 20th. We are prepared today to discuss those 3 items, and we are also prepared to talk about all of the other remaining items on the list. But we really think that it's important that we do spend some time talking about and hearing your thoughts on those 3 items that were respectfully declined, so that hopefully we can reach some sort of negotiated consensus on.
Okay, I'll take the liberty to respond to that. Negotiations are still open, so all the items are still open to discussion. So even though we've taken an initial position on 3 of those items, doesn't mean we'd be closed-minded to additional information or whatever. I'm going to let you guys rattle off the 3. I will say I feel like we've probably presented our position on some of these things already. So if you don't have new information or a response to our response, I don't know that we'll change our position.
I can go through the 3 items, and we do have responses to those 3 items.
Okay.
I feel like at this point it would kind of be responses to our original offer or ask. So we're more than happy to continue talking about it and to give you our counter to our original ask. But just to remind everybody, because it's been a couple of months, the first one was I think it was our 4th item. It was section 7R. It was about short absences. This dealt primarily with the folding in of students in additional classes. So we had that item. We were asking for additional compensation on that item, and that was respectfully declined. Then there was our number 6. I copy and pasted from your email, so I don't remember exactly where these were. This was section 7C in the negotiated agreement dealing with current annual discretionary leave. We were asking for all leave to be converted to PTO, paid time off. And then the 9th item was dealing with compensation. We had a couple of compensation items, but this one was particularly about competitive cheer. And we understand that I think this one had the most clear rationale for your respectfully decline, and I just copy and pasted what you said. You said you're going to work with the head cheer sponsor to establish a baseline for this past year, and then develop a plan for this coming year. Those are the 3 items that were respectfully declined. And I guess I'll just start with the last one, because that one you offered the most clear explanation for why it was declined. Last negotiation season, the BOE team asked us and the 3 cheer coaches to collect data regarding the ask for adding a competitive cheer coaching position on the supplemental salary schedule. And as far as we know, this was done, that we requested that those 3 coaches collect that data. I believe that those 3 coaches collected that data. What we're asking, I guess, for this particular item is, rather than respectfully declining the ask of adding to the supplemental salary schedule this competitive cheer position, I'd like to know what that data showed. If it shows that there is no need for a supplemental position to be added, we'd like to know that. If there is rationale shown in that data collected that shows that maybe there is, but not at the level at which we were originally asking for this supplemental position to be asked, we would like to know that. I feel like we and the coaches did the part that they were asked to do, and we would just like to have a little bit more of a conversation about what was in that data that now this year promotes respectfully declining the ask of supplemental.
I can answer that. We have not collected all of the data, and so it is incomplete. And so we don't feel like we have enough information. Even though it was requested, it still hasn't made all of its way to us in payroll to be able to pay these individuals. And I'm not sure where the hang up is, but we've reached out a few times like, hey, we need to get this done. I have one of our Rulton coaches has been taken care of. Another one is pending. And then I don't know that I have anything for the other coach. So there have been some things paid out, but it's still pretty incomplete. And so I think that's what we're saying is we need it turned in and taken care of before we can really give you a better answer.
That makes
So
that
So it wasn't submitted.
yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
it's either been submitted and it's held up somewhere, but it has never made it to us
Okay.
completely
That makes
to be paid.
makes
So
way more sense.
apologies
No,
that we
no,
didn't
we-
give you all of that. I was hoping it would be done by the end of the school year, but I still am waiting on
Okay.
some of it.
And we wrote that down. We said, look, if this is data that we asked for that hasn't been collected, then 100%
Yeah.
like we're on the same page. So
Yep.
like
And
we-
again, as soon as it comes in and we feel like we have all of it,
Sure.
then absolutely we will look at that and again be able to respond of, hey,
Okay.
this is how much additional it was. We had a lot of conversations with the high school administrative team and with the coaches of what to record and how to record it. And like I said, we got some of it, but we didn't get all of it yet.
So once you get that all, once you have that all, if you could just send that to us, because that's all that we were asking. We thought it had all been submitted. So if that's
Understood.
the case, so that makes complete sense to us.
Did you guys talk to the coaches and did they tell you
I've-
that they submitted everything? Okay.
Okay.
I've made multiple emails and phone calls
well-
asking for this information, and so I was unaware, so that's why we wanted to ask, because I literally gave them a spreadsheet and said, just complete that for me. So, which makes complete sense. So just as soon as you all get it, that
absolutely.
makes complete sense to us now.
I want to add a footnote here, and I'd start by saying I think we're all on the same page here. The footnote would be there are ongoing conversations with the coaches and high school admin about what we should be doing with these programs, what is considered competitive, how much do we want to bite off, what is the community's expectation. So this is still an evolving situation, in my opinion. And when we do it this way, where they submit hourly timesheets, nobody's getting cheated. They're getting paid for the time they've worked. So I appreciate your frustrations, and we probably share them, and I'm sure the coaches do, about dragging this out this way for one more year. but it protects everybody, and it's going to be better data, cleaner data, and is going to give us a little bit more runway to figure this out.
Okay. Then I will, as long as it's okay with my team, are we good with that?
Yes.
I'm just going to continue countering our, our original ask. I'm going to go backwards to the current annual discretionary leave that we were originally asking for all time to be logged as PTO. So our counter to that at this point is, and I wrote it up and I just took the part of our annual discretionary leave part of the negotiated agreement. We would just like to eliminate the requirement to utilize all discretionary days prior to using any sick leave. In other words, if I am ill in September, I would like to be able to code that as sick leave. And then if I, need to take a day off to go shopping because it's the best day to go shopping, I'll code that as discretionary leave. So, so just to change our original ask from coding it all as PTO, we're just asking that we eliminate that last part of the paragraph in annual discretionary leave that requires professional employees to use discretionary leave first. So that is that counter to our original ask.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, can you refresh my memory? Why are you asking for this? Because in the handout you gave us, it just says move it to PTO. It doesn't explain what's the rationale. How does this benefit your membership to
Sure.
Code it in this fashion?
And so it comes back to the example that we've given several times of a professional employee who now we have 11 discretionary days that we're credited per year, being able to use the days for how they are identified and not get stuck in a situation where a professional employee feels the need to lie about the reason that they're taking a day off. So just to give an example, a teacher has surgery scheduled, they're out for a week in September, that gets coded as discretionary leave. Anytime a child is sick or an adult is sick, you have to code that as discretionary leave. So then, if I have had kind of a garbage year and I got sick with the flu twice and my kid got sick with the flu once and I had to have a minor surgery, I've now depleted all my discretionary leave through no fault of my own, just because that's just how the dice are rolled some days. But then in February, my kid goes on a field trip and I am a chaperone for that field trip. And now I have to decide between, do I lie about this and call this sick leave because I've gone through all my discretionary leave, or do I have to make the decision to not do this? The other part of this too, I think, so that's the honesty aspect of it. I do think that this is a thing that's happening more and more in districts all around us. I think that there are several local examples of converting all time to PTO. And we're trailblazers and we're kind of lagging behind on this at this point. So I think that this is something that's becoming more common. It's certainly more common in corporate America than it is in education. But I do think that it's something that's happening more regularly. And I think that it just gives employees a little bit more of that understanding that their administrators and their bosses respect them and respect their ability to make decisions for their family and for their leave in a way that will benefit everybody. So that's the original intent of converting everything to PTO. Our counter to that original ask is just to allow a person to get sick in October and not count that as discretionary leave, but to count that as sick leave. So I can code that as sick leave because I am in fact sick, and then I can use my discretionary leave for my discretion.
There have also been situations where, because they've used their discretionary days and they were actually sick, and then came a point in time where they needed a discretionary day, I know that, and I'll give you an example, I know that I have to be off on this Friday to do such and such for my dad. okay, I've used all my discretionary days. I'm not sick. But I let my administrator know that, hey, I've got to take off Friday. Well, in that scenario, I get doc pay because I have no discretionary days. So, and that has happened before, where as in they're being honest, going, hey, I just found out I got to do A, B, C. I don't have any discretionary days left. I did have some sick days earlier in the year, but those were already coded as discretionary days. And so now I just have to get doc pay.
I can't think of any examples like that, Angela, especially if someone reached out to us and explained the hardship, like my father needs my care. So I'm not saying you haven't heard this, and anecdotally you haven't heard these stories. I'm not aware of any scenario like that. And the other thing is if an administrator used all their time and had to be out for an illness or whatever, they would go and dock, or a classified employee, or someone in the corporate sector, if they use all their paid leave, and maybe it's called PTO, if they experienced a long-term illness. And I know this isn't across all industries, but there's probably examples in corporate world where you go into dock, or there's a restriction on how many vacation days. So, and you know, this was never our response. Whether it's declining is never about disrespecting you or not respecting your ability to manage your own paid leave. That's never entered into our conversations. I want to make sure that's in the record. That's never been part of this. This is an in-person job, and that's one of the primary reasons why we're coming at this issue the way we are, okay? And I'm been here long enough to remember where it was all sick leave and you got 4 personal days. And that was intended because we need teachers to be in the classroom, so you only had so many days. We converted them to discretionary leave, and we were one of the first to do that. So you could use it however you see fit. And unfortunately, you're right. There are a lot of examples where people have to use those at the beginning of the year because their kid or their own illness wipes those out. We appreciate all that. But if we allow someone to tap into sick leave, and they use all that as sick leave, and then, oh, by the way, they have 11 discretionary days from December on, then there's a likelihood they're not going to be in the classroom. So I'm just being candid about some of the logic, and that's not disrespectful. That's us not trying to micromanage what you do with your leave, but that is the logic. That is some of the logic in our response. And we added a discretionary day. So I feel like every time this issue, not every time, many times when this issue's come up, we've demonstrated some flexibility. We've eliminated blackout days. I mean, we've, I think, routinely tried to give professional staff more flexibility, more options, more agency, whatever word you want to use, over their paid leave. So I'm not going to speak for the BOE team. That's not our response. We're going to have to think about this. I appreciate your counter offer or counter response, but we're going to have to think about that. So we're going to have to
Sure.
probably call a timeout.
And that's fine. Can I give you one last one to
Sure.
think of before we take our timeout?
Yeah.
So the third respectfully declined item, actually, I think this was top of our list, or one of the first ones. This was the one where we were talking about folding in students into classes. And back in that meeting, we were asking for a pay raise on that, and so we were talking about the rationale behind that. And I believe in that April meeting, it was brought up because we asked the question of, can a professional employee decline an administrator request when asked to fold in students or cover a class? And it was made very clear that they could, in fact, yes, decline that request. So the counter ask to our original ask, we're gonna take the money off of it. I went back to the negotiated agreement, and there are 2 places in that section that talk about covering these classes. The first point at which it is mentioned talks about professional employees requested by the building administrator to supervise classes, and I'll grant that the word request does not indicate that this is a decree. But again, it's a little vague. And then the other part that specifically talks about folding in actually says, when all or some portion of students from the absent professional employee's classroom are temporarily reassigned to another professional employee's classroom. And I interpret that as a reassignment means that I really haven't been given a choice in this. So our counter to our ask, instead of adding a little bit of money onto this, is we would just like to add a statement into the negotiated agreement that reads a professional employee may decline the administrator request to supervise these classes or additional students from these classes without fear of retaliation or retribution. Just to make it very clear that a professional employee has the right to decline that request.
Again, you guys are stuck with me. Unfortunately, I've been around long enough to remember when we changed the language. I don't remember what the phrase was before, but we went to requested, so it was made at that time, we felt like clear that to certified staff that they did not have, it was not a directive. I'm not opposed to refreshing the language. I don't think anybody's going to be retaliated against, so I struggle with that a little bit, but I'm not opposed to considering your recommendations. Let us consider them and see if that might address your concerns.
Just for clarification, I know you've been here a while and I know I've been here a while. But the thing is that what we're trying to just establish is that there is no vagueness if you're not here and I'm not here.
Sure.
So that it is clear that if an employee came to me and said, hey, Angela, I was told I had to do this. No, you don't, because here's what this says. All we're trying to do is just make sure that everybody's on the same page and that because here's the thing, when it comes to it's April and we're short 19 subs, that's where the issue lies, and people feel pressured to do things, and they're already stressed as it is. And I mean, there are times when, as we've said before, we can't change what happens in the spring. It's just not us, it's everywhere. But just to give someone that option to say, I just can't do that today. I just can't. I covered yesterday, I covered the day before, I just can't. All I think we're trying to do is just establish a little goodwill here that says, hey, you don't have to, you can say yes, you can keep saying yes. And if they keep saying yes and they come to me and tell me, I'm doing blah, 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 but you keep saying yes, you can always say no.
That's all.
That's all.
No,
That's
that helps
all.
me. That suggests that you guys have heard from your members, they felt pressured to do this. So, okay, let's see if we can't tweak some language so we can take the pressure off.
You requested that you want a little bit of time to think. Those are the three respectfully declined items from last time that we really wanted to make sure that we could continue talking about, and it sounds as though we can continue talking about these three things. We have all of the other things. Would you like to continue would you like us to hand out what the rest of our items are and have a further discussion so that we can caucus for
Yeah, I think
a
that
large
might be,
chunk of time?
that might be more efficient.
Okay.
So let's just let you guys proceed.
All right, I'll wait until you get these. It's the new hip.
It's the new hip, yeah.
Does anybody need any pie while we're waiting?
There's pie
There's
and ice
pie.
cream.
I think I'll get some pie when we go to break. Are you guys good with me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
You're doing amazing.
Can you, Angela, can you give one to Corey, or did you get one? Oh, he has one. Never mind. Corey has
No,
one. Never
you're
mind.
good.
You're good. And then you're all frantically flipping to the very last page that has compensation on it. We're going to start on page 1.
And there's front and back.
Can I see one of these just so I
Absolutely.
make sure I'm on the right side here? Okay, so it's starting with the one that we just talked about. So that was the counter to the folding in short absence language. On the back of that are the other two items that were respectfully declined last time. So number 6 and number 9, we've already spoken about those two things. So you can see that. Now I'm on page 2. And what I did was I took you wrote up after our last meeting, I think Jody, you sent it to us. I just copy and pasted that, and then I edited that a little bit. So your writing was in red, and then we edited some things, and I put it in bold red so that we could clarify this. First one was about planning time. This was about professional employees receiving compensation for planning time if they had to attend IEP meetings or sit meetings and that, just to clarify. And your writing in red, we edited a little bit. We eliminated the word full-time. We changed that to professional. We also eliminated general education employee. I'll explain why. I remember our conversation. I'll explain why in a second. We also eliminated the part that talks about in any regular 5-day school work week to prorated for full-time / part-time and for partial weeks. So we can change that. The conversation that we had last time dealt with a gen ed teacher requesting compensation for attending an IEP meeting or a SIT team meeting or some other scheduled meeting during their plan time if they did not receive, or if that left them at the end of the week with less than the negotiated amount of time. And we talked about, I think Jody, you mentioned that SPED staff are exempt from this because that is written in their contract about having IEP meetings and that. The reason that we've eliminated the word general education teacher in this is because later on in what you wrote, we wrote something about as the result of a required participation in a meeting he or she did not schedule, an IEP meeting, a SIT team meeting, or an administratively directed meeting. So we think that that phrasing, a meeting that he or she did not schedule, kind of accounts for the fact that if a SPED teacher schedules an IEP meeting during plan time, that will be an exemption to receiving compensation should that be something that they get. But if a SPED teacher is called to sit in on a SIT team meeting or an administratively directed meeting, that they still would qualify for that based on the language here. So we've changed that a little bit so you can see how and everything else on that for you is what was in your original email. Questions on that?
Couple thoughts, but I'd start with that's a good point you made there at the end about a special ed teacher being pulled into something he or she didn't schedule. So we'll have to think about that, but that makes some logic. The other two changes, again, this is going to turn into a major math problem for people, and I don't want to just do things because they're simpler or cleaner, but part-time folks, they benefit from being part-time, and their schedules are so weird, having dealt with parent-teacher conferences and some other things that we have to square up with part-time people. I can see this as a challenge. The rest of the board team could talk me off that ledge. The full week thing, I'm just one person. I feel a little bit stronger about that. That's still going to make it a lot cleaner and easier for everyone, including the involved teacher, the administrator, and payroll to be able to track this. So that might be one where I'm going to struggle giving it up for the reasons I just shared.
Okay.
Anybody else? So I appreciate those changes. We'll go back and consider those as well.
We'll give you a lot more things to think about and talk about here while you eat pie. The next one is our number 3 item. This is the hourly extra duty rates. This dealt with the BOE committee work. Again, ours is in bold at the bottom there. We're not asking for any additional compensation or anything like that. There's a little bit of a clarification that we're asking for. So I added in to your statement, I added in the GENEA Executive Board will be able to appoint professional employee representation for these committees to ensure that each level of education, i.e. elementary, middle, and high, are represented. There's 2 things about this that we would like a little bit of clarification on. The first part was that we talked last time about requesting that GENEA have a little bit of an understanding about how these committees are are compiled and how the people in these committees are selected. I went and I looked at the committee lists for this past year, and there are some committees that have 3 staff members on them, and there are some committees that have 14 staff members on them. So I guess the first question is, let's say in one of those committees that has 14 staff members, one of those staff members leaves and is no longer in that committee. Is that now a vacancy in that committee? Or is that well, we had 14, we only really needed 7, so we're good, we don't need to fill that vacancy anymore. We'd like a little bit of a clarification about how that works. Again, because these people are being compensated, it would make it a little bit more transparent to the people that work in this district. How do I get my name in that committee? And how do I participate if someone does leave that committee? Then the second question is, there are some committees that I noticed that have no high school representation or no middle school representation. Is that something that's important, that we have representation from all levels and all buildings? So just a little bit of clarification on that. And again, just to allow us to have a little bit of an understanding so that when our members come and ask us questions about, hey, Mandy was on this committee and now is no longer on the committee, I kind of would like to do that. How can we help get that new person involved? We'd like a little bit of some help in understanding that.
All right. Board committees are definitely an evolving set of committees of people. And I'll say that over the last several years, we have grown to elevate the importance of those committees. And so the real work of the board is done through the committee work. And so I have imagined that part of your question is born from the fact that the importance of those committees have been elevated. So the board has been in discussion over the last year about defining some of those very points that you brought up. And the board would like to have some stronger definitions to many of these points. To this point, we really haven't had the opportunity to do this. We would like to, when I say we, I'm talking about the board, and you guys jump in if I'm off base here. We'd like for the Policy Review Committee to start from that end of it, to give clear definitions as to who's on what committee, all these questions you asked about. Who's on what committee? How are they assigned or decided on? What if somebody goes off mid-year and then comes back on? When does the board approve who's on committees and all this sort of thing? So a lot of this is rather loosely defined at this point in time, and the board would like to more clearly define it as we move forward. This is not something that they have ignored, but it has, the deeper we dig into it, the more complex it becomes. And we do know one thing: we do want these board committees to continue to be the foundation of decision making amongst the board. I know that doesn't completely answer your question, but does that at least get us a little closer?
I think so. I think that it helps us understand a little bit
Yeah.
more about what's happening kind of behind the scenes with this and what your intent with these committees will be.
So I'll add too, you had asked about, number of staff that are on the committees, and oftentimes it depends on the nature of the committee. So there are certain things that are closer to the heart of a staff member, of a teacher. So like the Ed Services Committee, that is right in the wheelhouse of staff. In some cases, it's hard to get the number of staff that we'd like to be on a committee to be on the committee. At times we get more, an abundance of it. And same goes with community members and students and administrators and sometimes even board members. So I guess I'd ask for some patience, but I'm not sure we're in a spot to change negotiated agreement until the board really nails down exactly what is defined in policy. We probably need to start with getting the policy nailed down. Does that reflect?
Yeah, I think that you raised some good points here, but this was about compensation for the work on the committees. So I don't know, do you guys probably don't want to abandon that, do you?
No, we never wanted, we
Yeah.
never wanted to alter the compensation or the benefits from serving on
Okay.
a board committee. It was just that members were coming to us saying either I've served on this committee for multiple years and this is the first I'm hearing about compensation, or other members coming to us and saying, well, now I kind of want to serve on a committee if I'm going to be compensated for that. How do I get in on this? We just wanted a little bit more clarification and transparency.
Yeah, so the policy, the Committee on Committees policy is a little bit more specific than Brian described, but it's still a work in progress. It's evolving as the board gets comfortable with the way it's set up now and how we're using committees to make a lot of the important decisions. So I think Brian's right. We want to be careful. We don't want to put something in a negotiated agreement that's going to run afoul of the policy. So I think we can retain the compensation piece, but let us work through another cycle with the board on policy, updating policies, and this might be something we could revisit and put in something a little more specific in the negotiated agreement that is in line with the policy manual.
Which we understand all of that. The only other thing that we ask, and once again, it has nothing to do with not paying people. That has nothing to do with it. But if, let's say, 3 years from now, you want to make a committee that does A, B, and C, whatever that might be, the board wants to do that. All that we ask, that is, if that's a committee that you believe is a board committee that you are going to offer these options for, which is great, it just needs to come to us as a negotiated team, because that is compensatory, because you're paying, because it's money. And so we have to be made aware that we're offering this. That's all that we're asking. So we're not asking you to pay the calendar committee. That's not what we're asking to do. We're just asking that in the future, we have the understanding that if you make this, like for example, the boundary committee, we haven't changed boundary in years. I know that. It is a voluntary committee. I understand that. I'm not expecting to get paid to be on that committee. But if there's something that the board later down the road and these individuals aren't here and they're like, hey, we want to form this committee and we want to offer what we do for these committees here, we just ask that be brought to us. That's it.
We message received. We understand if we in the future offer compensation for some kind of committee work or really anything else, we will make a good faith effort to make sure you guys are looped in.
Thank you.
Okay, we have two more things essentially. Number 5 on our list was the Section 7 Flex Day part. All we changed was the wording that you had in your write-up on this. It included something about contingent upon completion of confirmed professional development by the professional employee on an alternative non-work day. And we would just like to change that to by the professional employee outside of contract time. Just to clarify, for again, making sure that people understand that this does not have to be, like this could be after school, this could be on a, it can be at any time that is not in that employee's contract time. Just to clarify.
Okay, that would not include plan time or,
That's contract time.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, again, just trying to clarify.
Sure, that's contract time. All right, then,
Wait, anybody else have questions on that one?
Okay.
Okay, don't pull your cover there. Poker face over here.
wait. Bye. Whatever amount of time you want to caucus, we need to add 5 minutes or so to get pie. Then on your copy that you have, number 7 and number 8, I put in gray just because we've agreed to those. I just didn't want to exclude them on here. Now we get to compensation. This is what we're all here for, part of it. The first one dealt again with another supplemental salary schedule adjustment. This was the high school music director, pit director. We agree to your original ask. Moving it to group 4. The clarification that we want to make sure that we have is that number 1, that the job description is updated. It still states one job or one show. So we need to make sure that the job description is updated and that the wording for that supplemental compensation needs to be clear that it can be split between 2 people for 2 shows. So those are just the things that we want to make sure that we're clear on that one.
those seem pretty straightforward. And just for the record, we split supplementals all the time. So in an effort to provide clarity, I understand this ask, and it's not a big ask, but I just hope the whole world knows we split supplementals all the time. So that is not something that bothers us or throws us off.
Okay. Then the last part, salary schedule. We originally, in our original package, asked for, we divided this up between the columns. So we divided this up between BS to the bachelor's plus 30, and then the master's to the doctoral columns. We're leaving it like that. We asked originally for 1,500 and a step for the first group, and then 1,800 and a step for the second group of those. Your counter was 250 plus a step. So what we're asking now for bachelor's to bachelor's plus 30 is 1,000 plus a step, and then the master's to the doctoral columns is 1,200 plus a step. And let me give you a little rationale about the 1,000. Last year we had the district was it in January? Gave us a $750 retention bonus. So we took that $750 retention bonus and we added it to your $250 counter, and that's how we came up with $1,000. So, but we really do think that it's important that we do a little bit more for those higher columns, those master's plus doctoral columns, just so that we're doing that number 5 item on the BOE's priorities of staff retention and recruitment, that we are remaining competitive in this area, in this geographic area, for those teachers who have gone above and beyond to get a master's or a doctoral degree, and adding additional credits onto their degree so that we can compensate them for the work that they've done. And that's the end of our document.
Any questions about the comp offer or maybe counterpoints? Well, I can't help myself. So I think it is important, again, clarity for the folks that are listening, that longevity is something in our negotiated agreement that awards people that have been in the district longer. So they're moving down, and it's probably the best longevity program anywhere. So that is our effort to recognize our folks that have been true blue and been here a long time. Obviously, moving over on the salary schedule is recognition for continuing education, and you make more by moving over a column. And we've added columns. We added plus 36, and we added a related service provider column. And then again, just for clarity for new folks, if you haven't been here for a while, we had a salary schedule that got way out of whack because we started adding different amounts for different columns. So I appreciate the continuing education, the folks that have been here longer, they're experts. So these aren't disrespectful statements. They're just statements about how we've tried to manage the salary schedule over the years and recognize some of your previous asks. So those would just be counterpoints. We're not put off by your request, but those are things that will factor into our response. Okay, I'd like to ask for probably 30 minutes.
35 for pie.
Yep. So come back at 20 after?
Yep.
Ish. Okay, we'll let you know if it's a little bit sooner. Thank you. and present, start by acknowledging the best pie that's ever been served at a negotiations meeting. Maybe the only time, but it's the best. Thank you sincerely. Okay. All right, we have responses, I think, for everything. I'm going to count on Team BOE to jump in if I skip over anything or misspeak. So we'll start with your short absences. We understand the need for clarification, clarity. We are comfortable with, we're going to have to wordsmith this, guys, but let me give you the gist of it. I'm going to close this out because this is going to distract you guys. I'm reading off the stuff that you guys handed out. So the studio audience isn't necessarily going to be able to see this, so bear with me. So on short absences, you asked for language that says a professional employee may decline the administrator's request to supervise these classes or additional students from these classes without fear of retaliation or retribution. We're comfortable with the first part of that, but we want to add some kind of caveat if student safety or supervision is at risk. Look, guys, we had some days this spring where an administrator needs to be able to rally the building to cover kids. So we need some kind of caveat in there about student safety and supervision. And then we are respectfully asking for the removal of retaliation and retribution. That is a baseline professional expectation. You, as certified professionals, should not be subject to retaliation or retribution for anything. So we feel like that is unnecessary. So why don't you give us some feedback on those kind of changes and conditions to see if we're close.
You mean right now? Can we talk as a team
Yeah,
afterwards,
that's
and
another
then
option. Yep.
yes, we would
Okay.
love to do that. Yep.
So Jody, say one more time, you're referencing student safety and what?
So
Liability?
no, so I put in here a professional employee may decline the administrator's request to supervise these classes or additional students to the extent student safety and supervision can be maintained.
Okay,
There's a number of other ways to word that, but that's kind of the gist.
okay.
Your next item was current annual discretionary leave, and you'd asked to remove the discretionary day usage first. We again respectfully decline for all the reasons we've already provided. And again, we talked as a leadership team here when you guys left. We can't think of any example where an employee has faced a true hardship because they were sick or some other hardship came up early in the year and we weren't able to at least work with them to attend, participate in something meaningful or important, or an additional hardship later in the year. So we're still not there with you guys on that one. Plan time was the next one we were kind of working together on. We're okay with taking out the full time, so our part-time folks would have access to this. We're okay with removing the general ed piece, but we're not okay with the prorated recommendation that you provided. We want to take that back out. Okay. Committee work, I think we're pretty much on the same page there. The compensation piece would stay in, and we'll revisit the membership part after we've gotten a little bit more direction from the Board of Education. Flex days, we're okay with your language changes to change it to professional employee outside the contract time. So we were in agreement on pit director, so I think we're at salary schedule. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Amy and let her go through our next comp offer. Before I do that, any questions about all the other topics or areas?
So now that we've had a little bit of time, some of these numbers have settled in as far as what we feel like we're going to have for additional receipts next year. The state aid, we were able to add in the virtual state aid we are anticipating now that the board has approved that option for a virtual program to be added. There is some state aid available to that. Attrition, this is our final number. We were really pushing for that $1 million, but it did not happen for a variety of reasons. I will tell you that the net certified FTE is going down by 7 across the district. That's what we had 9 like right sizing of classes, basically like moving folks around. We don't need this many sections. But then we had 2 additions for that very same reason. So the net is 7 overall for certified staff. And then non-payroll savings are the same. We did kind of, got a little bit of information about our insurance renewal. It was a little better than we expected, but then we had to add back in the expenses for the virtual education, so it was pretty much a wash. So I just left that number the where it is. It's probably within $50 or whatever of what it may end up being, but I just left it the same. So we're saying that we feel like the new money that we'll have for next year, or repurposed money, is just over $1.3 million, and that's total. And as a reminder, last year it was a little over 2, and the year before that it was closer to 3 or 4. So it's really tight, and you guys know that, and it's because we're not growing in enrollment, and we are really starting to come to realize that now with the state aid piece. So when you look at the compensation changes, if we were offering $500 and a step, the certified base increase for returning staff is just under 700 or just over 750,000. The certified supplemental increase for returning staff is almost 40,000. The budgeted salary movement is 95,000. This year it was about 93,000. So we know with letters training, I actually shot a little over this year, and we didn't have as many folks in letters training, but we know we have some of that going on. So that's will continue to push people forward. And then taxes, obviously, on that piece. The good news is that we were able to reduce the amount that we expect that we're going to have to reserve for benefits. And so that's how we were able to achieve that, plus the additional funding up top was how we were able to achieve to $500. We're now budgeting for a 9% increase, where we originally were budgeting for a 12% increase. We did get some word back from Blue Cross and from Holmes Murphy, our broker, that's where we're calcing at right now is about 9%. We're going to continue to work on that and try to whittle it down a little bit more, but there's not a lot of wiggle room in this without diluting the benefits, which no one wants, and we don't have any appetite for either. So this would be the certified portion of those benefits, the increase that we were talking about of the paid benefit. So that leaves us to certified staff getting 1.2 of the $1.3 million. And that's really uncomfortable for me, guys, to give you guys 90% of that. But we are able to, we have some other attrition happening in the classified ranks that we're able to make sure that they can also get an increase, and some other, little things in there that we were able to pay for their piece out of. So, that's where we're at. It's a 1.92% increase for returning staff. We would offer classified and professional staff a 2.25% increase, and administrative staff would be at the same level as our certified and ATC returning staff.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
You mentioned expenses for virtual education, kind of washing out that other change. What were the expenses for virtual education?
The expenses will be what we owe to the company. So there is a set amount based on the enrollment. So we will get state aid, but then about 80% of that will go back to the company that is managing the virtual education program, the fees that we have to pay them.
Okay, and then the change in benefits reserve from, you were guessing 12%, it's now maybe 9%.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is for this past year previously? What was
last year we were able to get it to just over 6%. Okay. And this is based on our own claims history, and guys, it's not pretty. And that's where, we have to.
I know from other districts, and I'm just trying to clarify where we are.
We were and that was, remember, we changed to, we had the Blue Cross change, and they took us back on, and that's been really great. They understand that we're in education. They, you know, really worked very hard with their underwriters to get us to a single digit increase. And so we're pleased with that. Not pleased that it's 9%, but pleased that it's not 12 or 15 or, you know, what some other districts are saying they're experiencing.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
It takes us a while to kind of get our heads around this and everything, so I'm going to ask for 20 minutes just so that we can have a good conversation. So 550.
Sounds good. Anybody on the board team, any other additional comments about any of the items or the comp offer? Okay,
Thank you.
see you in 20 minutes. Okay, we're all back in the room here, so I'm going to turn it back over to GNEA.
It's me again.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go down the list again. Again, this is the list that we presented. That's not necessarily the order on the agenda. So number one on our list was the short absences. We are respectfully declining the change to adding in the wording about to the extent of student safety and supervision can be maintained. Unless we can bring back into the conversation the addition of some additional compensation back into the fold of this. We think that it's important to do this because I can see it happening where at any given situation of needing folding in, an administrator can say, well, this is for the safety of our students, thereby never giving a professional employee the opportunity to decline that coverage. Also, we have had instances in the past where it is, we've had over 40 students in a class that were folded in, and that is also not safe to have that number of, I think it was second graders in that case, being folded in. So we're going to respectfully decline that part. We are comfortable with taking out the part about without fear of retaliation or retribution. But what we are going to just make sure that we pay attention to is that throughout the course of next year, that we are paying attention to this. I think that in some situations, in some buildings, they would question why we would want to add this. Why would you ever want to add without fear of retaliation or retribution? That's, of course, that's a thing that we would expect. But I do think that there are certain buildings that would definitely be supportive of keeping that phrasing in. So we do want to make sure that we're paying attention to that throughout the next year, but we are comfortable with taking that part out.
Okay, I'm going to encourage anybody else to jump in. Yeah, we want to pay attention to anybody that feels like they're being retaliated against or there's retribution. So we share your vigilance on that next year because that will not be tolerated from a leadership team standpoint either. So membership, you need to trust that we'll work with GNEA on that should it come up. And you also brought up the example of 40 kids in a second grade. We agree with you. That's not appropriate, and we'll speak to our building admin to make sure that doesn't happen again next year. And if it does, we'd expect for your members to pipe up right away so we can address it. Okay? But we understand your response.
Okay. Let me just make sure I'm on the right page here. The next item is current annual discretionary leave. We are not comfortable dropping this this issue at this time. We just in the last 20 minutes that we were in there, we went down a list of other districts in the area. We currently are the district in Johnson County that gets the fewest number of days. I think the lowest number next is 12. And there are a number of districts that have changed to days are days. So the idea of PTO. We're not asking for an additional day. We get 11 days of discretionary leave per year. We're not asking to increase that number. We are asking for the ability for a teacher to identify the days that they are using and how those days are coded, so that a professional employee can make professional decisions regarding the time off that they receive. We need to come up with, and I'm saying we, but it's all of us, we need to come up with creative ways for us to get our contract ratified this year. And discretionary leave, as we've said in years past, if you ask teachers what are the most important things in your contract, the most important things are time and money. There's not a lot of money this year, and that leaves time. So we're asking for the BOE team to to take a little bit more time and think about the two things that we've talked about, having all coded as PTO. That was our original ask. Now our ask is, fine, leave it coded as discretionary leave and sick leave, but allow professional employees to use sick leave days prior to their using discretionary leave days. So we're asking for the BOE team to come back and give us a little bit of a counter on our ask.
And here's something else, just to give a little perspective. If I have to take a day, I have to write lesson plans. And I've got to say, here's what's got to happen, blah, blah, blah. And if anything happens during that day that I'm gone, I have to address that as well. You all can take a day off, and you're not writing lesson plans or anything like that. You're coming back to the work that you missed and catching up. But do you understand it's more work for us to take a day so than it is for anybody else in any other profession? I mean, even as an administrator, they take a day, they're not writing lesson plans to say, hey, Mr. Secretary, or who, no one's filling in for them. So what I'm just saying is that it's a lot of work for a teacher, and if they're asking for the day, there's a reason they're asking for that day. And it's more work than you think for most people. Now, granted, some people, you're gonna come back with me and say, well, Angela, that some people don't really write every good lesson plan. Once again, that's true. Some people do jobs better than others. I don't disagree with you there. I'm just saying that it is something that you can give people that costs you nothing but goodwill. That's all it's costing you. I mean, granted, if they use those days, it does cost you in the end. That part it's true. But the fact that to know that I can do with them what I want to and how I need to do them, that costs you nothing. That just gives me good peace of mind of going, they're giving me the idea that I'm a professional and I can take those days.
We were talking in the back, and I can give you examples for myself. I drive 75 miles to school and back every single day. The majority or a large portion of what I spend my money on is stuff relating to my car. Gas, repairs, that kind of thing. And I know that a lot of people have those types of expenses. It's gotten hard in the last couple of years to maintain a car and to fill it with gas and to make that commute. And driving 70 miles a day, there are mornings where I wake up and I look out the window or I check my weather app, and I don't necessarily want to make that drive and risk running off the road outside of Baldwin. And this idea of a tight compensation year, we all understand that. It's not just us, it's everywhere. We understand that. The ability for a teacher like me to wake up on that morning in February and say, okay, like, I was sick earlier, I used sick leave. I still have some discretionary leave that I can use to take this time off. Giving teachers a little bit more professional trust with how they use their leave and how they're able to code their leave goes a long way in terms of how I feel my district values and respects me as an educator. It's hard to give exact examples for this, but those are things that go through our heads, and I know it's not just me, and I know that people drive a lot, but that's a big decision when there are districts that are closer to where I live that compensate more than we compensate, and or have more leave or have a more generous leave policy. So it's just something that we're not comfortable dropping at this time. We just need the BOE team to come back and think a little bit more about compensation is tight, so how can we address some of these other non-compensation items? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm going to respond a little bit. Again, this is a process we go through, if not every year, every other year, where we do comps and we look at other districts and we ask ourselves, how do we compare? And we all know that there's no two negotiated agreements that are the same. You have the shortest contract, 185 days, so I feel like that needs to be part of the conversation too. And so that's 2, 3, 4 fewer days you're working. And I agree, it's not necessarily at your discretion. We've adjusted the sellback policy probably every other year, so people that don't need to use it can maybe earn a little bit more, and that's in your control. Obviously, snow days, every district's been pretty flexible with those over the last few years. That's kind of a consistent thing. And the negotiated agreement currently says if you run out of discretionary days and you have bank sick leave, you can get up to 2. So for me, if we want to talk about getting creative, there's probably other ways for us to get creative. And then I would also add in that working together, we've been able to provide other flexibility, flex PD, flex work time, to respect you as professionals and give you more control. Is there opportunity there? I don't know. And then just finally, I would say, if, for example, a district administrator had a major surgery, he would be expected to go in and put it in as sick leave, not vacation or something else. So all employee groups have restrictions, they have parameters, they have expectations on their paid leave. So while I understand, not me, we all understand what you're asking for, especially in lieu of a tight compensation year. I feel like we have demonstrated flexibility and creativity in addressing what you've asked for year over year. So just you guys kind of shared your thoughts and some other examples. I just wanted to respond with those points, which we've talked about year over year as a response to your request. So I'm not saying, I think we're pretty set in our position, but we understand you're asking us to give it more consideration. We will.
I'm going to cut to the chase then. We're not going to counter salary until we can talk about leave some more. So is that fair? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're not comfortable countering salary. It's the time and money thing. We haven't asked for a lot of additional compensation items. We've dropped a couple of things. We've actually removed the additional compensation from the folding in students request. Again, like I said, now, unless we can bring it back into the table to discuss talking about student safety and all that, we haven't asked for a lot of compensation. We haven't asked for a lot of difficult things. It's time and money. And there's not a lot of money, and so we're not gonna counter with salary until we can have a little bit more conversation about leave. I think our position is pretty clear. If we need time for us to draw up neighboring districts and their leave policies, we can do that. We've done it in the past. If we need time for us to look at the percentage of leave that an administrator in this district gets for their contract and the percentage of leave that a professional certified employee gets for their contracted number of days, we can do that. It will probably have to happen at a later time than today. If we need additional data to support these things and support these conversations, we can do that. But if we're not making any progress on time, then we're not gonna have any time to counter on money today.
Okay, so your position is if the board team isn't prepared to counter on current annual discretionary leave, you don't want to discuss any of the other items.
Well, it's a mandatory negotiated item.
And we're
Like
negotiating.
discretionary leave is. I don't think that we've negotiated leave. Like, we've negotiated other things, right?
We haven't limited or barred you guys from introducing any language or any recommendations or requests on any of your items. So we're just responding to what you've said.
But, go ahead, Beth.
So I know over time, I feel like we introduced discretionary days several years ago, and I feel like we led the way for a lot of surrounding districts. And we made more flexibility with, we were one of the first ones to have discretionary days. Over time, as districts have refined their compensation to teachers, I think they have closed that gap of where we were and surpassed us in some places. And I know all of that is a give and take with that whole compensation package. We just know surrounding districts close to us we were one of the first ones to have fewer blackout days, but I think there are other districts that are catching up to that. So we're trying to find some creative ways to keep our compensation competitive across that in these areas. Surrounding districts that have 15 to 17 discretionary days, or 12, I think the minimum was 12 discretionary days. We're just trying to be creative about how we can offer teachers time that match surrounding districts, and not lose that edge that we've had. We'd like to maintain that edge that we've had. And one of the ways we think we can do that is to create that space of you have 11 discretionary days without having to go through extra steps to, like if you had the flu, if your child had surgery, without having to go through extra steps to explain why you need those extra days. I think we're just asking, how can we creatively keep our edge in this discretionary leave area compared to our neighbors, and offer people time if we can't offer as much money.
Okay. I'd like to suggest, can you give us 10 minutes to caucus and see if we have any ideas that might be a response to your position?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for giving us a few minutes there. In the spirit of creativity and trying to address what we hear you asking for, we'd offer this counter. So we'll have to play with the language, guys. So again, bear with me. But essentially the offer is to change what we've put in here about you can access 2 additional sick leave days and use them for discretionary reasons, to make them 4. To make it 4, you can access 4 bank sick leave days and use them at any time during the year. You do not have to use your discretionary days first. Okay, so the example of teacher gets the flu in August, is out 3 or 4 days, we'll say 4 just to make this a clear example. She or he can go in and take those 4 days out of their banked, earned sick leave and enter them as such, thus saving the discretionary days. Or you can do it the other way around. You can use your discretionary leave, and when you're out, oh, by the way, I'm supposed to go with my kiddo on their field trip in May, and I can now use one of my bank sick leave days, no questions asked. Okay, well, while you guys are thinking about that, I did not have the opportunity, we didn't have the opportunity to go back and look at, I don't think there's any implications for sellback. I don't think there's any implications for the rollover where if you've got 4 discretionary days, they turn into 5. But we collectively need to look at that and see if what I'm proposing or what we're proposing has any impact on other language items in the agreement. Am I making sense? Okay. So that is our creative effort to try to meet you guys halfway. And it's a very good start in our opinion. We know we're going to discuss this probably every year, but that's what we feel like is a reasonable response. And obviously it doesn't do anything for first year folks.
Yeah, 'cause they have no sick leave.
All right, we welcome your questions or feedback.
I don't think I have any questions on that at this time. We good? Not on that, no. Yeah. We still have the short absences. We are comfortable with removing the without fear, retaliation, or retribution, but we are not comfortable with the adding language about to the extent of student safety and supervision can be maintained unless we can negotiate for additional compensation for teachers who do take on those additional students. So there's still that.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't
That's
discuss
okay.
that, but
That's okay.
we understand what
Do
I
you-
think your response is.
Yeah, do we need, like, we can go through some of the other things then. I don't think I mentioned planning time. We were okay with that. We're okay with the full-time gen ed and then removing the prorated. We're okay with that.
Okay.
We,
Or not? Prorated for full and part, but not partial.
correct,
Okay.
not for the partial week.
Okay.
Yeah, not, you're saying removing the prorated for the partial week, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so we're okay with with that part, but not like, if you're a part-time employee, then,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement.
okay. Then, the hourly extra duty rates, with the committee work, we're okay with this. We're just putting a note to revisit this next year when we have more details.
Yes,
Flex days, I think we're okay with.
yes.
Yeah, we're just back to the salary schedule. Can we? Yeah, could we just, because you gave us some stuff about leave, can we have a few minutes to come up with a counter?
Yeah, but before you go, I do want to go back to the short absences. Do you guys have any questions about this? If the principal has to require, so to speak, someone to go in there?
I
guys
think
have any
that the,
thoughts on
the phrase of professional judgment has come up several times, and we do try to treat everybody as professionals. And I think the main point here is this, that I don't think that GNEA wants to make this so black and white as to tie the hands of the administrator to make administrative decisions in unusual circumstances, if that makes sense. And I know that GNEA also wants to protect teachers to the extent of unusual circumstances. I think we might be getting ourselves into a pickle here because we're trying to normalize extreme circumstances, if that makes sense. And I think that I'll just say personally, I'm okay with removing the language as long as GNEA can acknowledge that at times an administrator needs to make an unusual decision based on unusual circumstances. And that's really, I think, where we're coming down to. And I'd hate for us to get stuck in a place where we're trying to normalize an unusual circumstance, if that makes sense.
I think that in a rose-colored world where everybody is doing everything honestly and the way that I think we all agree things should be done, yes, we would agree with that. I know that there is discrepancy in how teachers are asked to cover classes in practice. I know that there are teachers who are on their third week working in our building who are getting phone calls while they're actively teaching a class to cover the very next class, when I have the exact same plan and I didn't get that phone call. Whether that's intentional or not, it happens, and it's a little bit too easy for someone to say, this is an extenuating circumstance, I'm sure you understand, as a third week employee in the district. It happens a lot to new teachers who don't necessarily have their feet under them to be able to say, I simply cannot. I barely have my foot in front of me, and I simply cannot do this right now. So yeah, in a rose-colored world where everybody does things and we treat everybody equitably and we make these decisions and we do the very best that we can to do this, yes, of course, there's extenuating circumstances. But if a teacher is asked to do something in an extenuating circumstance for the safety of the students and for the sake of having supervision for those students, then we need to add a little bit more compensation to what they're doing. Because again, that's an extenuating circumstance that the district doesn't want to find themselves either in, because that means that we don't have enough subs to cover those classes. But recognizing that my folding in 5 or 8 or 24 students into my class results in, whether we like it or not, learning loss for those students, and safety issues for the number of students that are in a class, and results in compensating a professional employee less than what a sub would be compensated for covering the same situation. So yeah, I think we agree to that, but I think that if we are gonna do that, then we do have to enter back in. That was why we wanted the wording about without fear, retaliation, or retribution, because I think it clarifies a little bit to new employees and to new to the profession, like green people who don't necessarily know how all these things work. It gives them a little bit of a backbone to say, I simply cannot do this. Perhaps there's a veteran teacher who has their feet under them a little bit more that you can ask instead. And again, you can't cover all that.
So thank you. And Leslie, I hear the passion in the voice. There's a reason why you all are asking the question, no doubt. And part of what Jody has said is true, and that is that there have been a couple of examples that were brought up, and we agree. I mean, that shouldn't be happening. And we can do some professional development with the administrators too, and setting some parameters and limits and all that. Part of it too is communication. And so the example you brought up about the new teacher, my hope would be that we would have an environment set up to where there would be more of a freedom to say, this is hard. And if they can't say this is hard to an administrator, to say this is hard to a fellow teacher, and the fellow teacher would help them with the path to rectify that. So I guess we're all saying the same thing. I don't think we should have the situations that you're describing either. But what I don't want to put black and white language down that limits administrative capacity to deal with an unusual circumstance. So if we had the black and white language, we would still want the administrator to be able to say, hey, look, I get what it says here, but, which, I mean, you all have been around for a long time. It's not, you could probably think of one or two examples in your career where that kind of thing it was obvious that this needed to happen today. Anyway, I'll stop there. Leslie, yes, I think we're all on the same page. I just want to be careful that we don't overly limit ourselves with black and white language. And I know you also want to make sure we're in a good place to where new staff members feel emboldened. We all agree with all this.
So a couple of thoughts for us all to consider. Look, class coverage, folding in, that's about safety and supervision, and it happens quite a bit, so it's not a unique thing. But anytime we go to a teacher and say, hey, can you cover this class? Or we go to a third grade teacher and say, hey, can I put 6 or 8? That's a supervision and a safety issue. So I don't know that I want to start discriminating between what's truly a safety and security issue or supervision issue and what's not. Whenever we make this request and somebody covers, it's a little bit of a unique situation or different, or it's more responsibility, I'd put it that way. How much are we paying a daily sub right now, Mark? Just a daily sub? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna circle back. Your original request was for someone that's covering a half day folding in was a half day of sub pay, is that correct?
Yep.
And if they cover all day, it's a full day pay?
Yep.
That was your original request?
Original. Yep.
Okay, I'm just kind of reminding us of that, so. But I think we're getting close on this. It's still a language thing. I think we'll just need to chew on that a little bit when we
Sure.
maybe caucus for a few more minutes here tonight. Let us chew on that one a little bit.
I think the other thing to remember too is, as we've been in this career for as long as many of us have been, this is something that's becoming more and more the norm. You know, when I first began in education, we weren't folding in very often, like at all. And then you might have had a few days where, okay, maybe somebody was gone and you had to do it. This has become something that is a very regular practice, and it's not always just in April. It's just, you know, it has become a lot more common, and teachers are dealing with a lot of things, and I know that you guys know that, but we're exhausted. And then you add the extra students and you add the other things, and we want to do what's best for kids. That's what we went into the profession for. But when you continue to have multiple days of having to fold kids in, you have multiple situations or one person who continues to get that weighs on staff, and that is exhausting. And so to be able to figure out a way to say, hey, they can say no if they're struggling to be able to do that, or they're going to get compensation to be able to handle that fact that, okay, I know this is hard, or hey, I'm splitting between 3 classes. Okay, that's a little bit different than if I'm splitting between, you know, I'm getting an entire class, you know, that's splitting in. But again, it's becoming a lot more common, and it is exhausting.
So I can't help myself. A couple things. One is I think we invented the folding in thing because we knew elementary folks it wasn't being addressed, at least not equitably. So that was a good faith effort, I think, to address what is more common at the elementary. And then just my plea, all of us working together to drive down the need for class coverage. As you're saying, Robbie, that's tough on staff. It's not ideal for kiddos. So just if we can collectively as an organization work at ways to drive down the need for it in the first place, that would be great. So, okay, are we at a point where we both need to, did you guys have another compensation response, or?
That's what we need to.
Yeah.
So the
caucus
time
about.
off first, you
Yep,
need to
yep,
process that?
Yep.
Okay,
I'm
and we'll
always
work
going
on
to ask for a little bit more than we thought, so 15 minutes. Is that
Okay.
okay?
right about 7.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Should've brought
I
dinner.
don't know. Then I'll be like,
Where's the burger and fries?
Oh.
if I had more.
Okay, I think we're back. So, not sure if you guys are ready to provide a response or an update, or do you?
Still left it on. We can give our counter to the compensation. Um, we we're going to remove the distinction between the columns. So just all the columns instead of just bachelor's to 30 and then master's to doctorate, and ask for 1,000 plus a step for all instead of the 1,000 and then the 1,200 for the separate columns. And I think that was the only outstanding thing that we had.
Okay, probably before we excuse ourselves, any update on the paid time off? Any additional thoughts about that?
We're waiting to hear about your short absence discussion.
Okay. Short absences, we would be prepared to counter with a change. So you have this in front of you. If you look at the existing language,
Yep.
you go down to 4 and it talks about folding in there.
Yep.
We'd be willing to increase the half-day supervision to 1.25 hours based on the column 1, step 1, which based on what we proposed would go up to $42.82. And then the full day, half day to full day, we'd bump that up to 2.5 hours, which is approximately $85. So it would increase the comp for that coverage. Language-wise, we're very okay with highlighting, stressing, emphasizing, underlining that the professional employee can decline. We still want the retaliation or retribution language removed. And then we don't see any need to put it in the agreement. But again, in a dire emergency, you know, we're always going to expect a building principal to have some discretion. So again, we don't feel like that needs to be in the negotiated agreement, but it also can't go without saying.
Okay. So we'll we'll go back and talk about that and the discretionary leave. You'll talk about compensation and we'll come back.
Sounds good.
Yeah. How long do we need?
10 minutes.
Sure.
Thank you. We're all back. Do you guys have any additional responses or?
I think we want to hear the response to comp, and then we're ready, but we need.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, before I turn it over to Amy to kind of revisit the comp offer, just to
Sure.
take inventory. So you guys came in this evening with a request about short absences. I don't think it's exactly what you were hoping for, but we did add compensation for folding in, and I think we've gotten close on some language there. So feel like that one's super close. On discretionary leave, current annual discretionary leave, we hear your pleas. We feel like we've offered a creative, reasonable next step in this process. Competitive cheer, we're in agreement. Plan time, we appreciate the back and forth there. Come to terms on that. The extra duty for committee work, feel like we started out with that original proposal. We're all kind of on the same page with that, knowing that we've got some work that we'll have to follow the board's lead on cleaning that up next year. Flex days, we worked together. We came to agreement on that. Music pit director came to agreement on that. And on salary, just going to turn this back over to Amy. Just to reiterate, enrollment's where it's at, staffing's where it's at. We have negotiated aggressively on health benefits, and we do not want to dilute benefits. So we've got a pretty good understanding about what the renewal is going to be on health insurance. And then we know what the new money is at this point. We know what the receipts are at this point. So I'm going to turn it back over to Amy, but we're pretty much where we're at, I think, guys, for all of those reasons. So, but I'll let Amy add a few additional thoughts and our response.
Our response is our best and final is 500 and a step. That's all the money that we can put into this. We wanted to put it as much as possible into salaries because we know that's where it's most impactful and it touches everyone. Again, just a reminder that we're offering 93% of the new money to certified staff, and we're going to have to get creative to make sure that our other staff members can also receive comparable salary increases. It's not where we want to be, we agree, but until enrollment trends change or we make other decisions about staffing models or support and all of those other things, this is the best that we're going to be able to do for this year.
Yeah, no, I respectfully, I hear what you're saying. We are 5 of us. We need to pull our members, and we need to get some information from our members and ask if they are, if we need to do more for them or if they are okay with that. With the step and with the 500. If you are a returning staff member from the last 2 years, it's less than even for recognizing that we had that $750 retention last year. So if you are I guess that would make you a 3rd year returning staff member, they're going to be seeing, they're going to get the step, but they're going to be seeing essentially less than what they got this year. So we need to send some literature out to our members and get some idea from them, which means that I don't think that we can settle tonight.
Yep, we understand, and so we'll look at the next meeting.
Sure.
Again, I'm not sure where we're going to find the additional money. So just kind of close on a down note there, but
Well, it's not all money. Exactly. We can ask for things that are not money if that's what the members are asking. So, yep.
We're pretty creative.
We are very creative. We looked ahead, and we have the week of July 13th that the majority of us have time in the afternoon.
Okay, it's a board meeting week, so obviously Monday's out of the question. Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm open.
Yep.
Wednesday,
That's fine. The 15th?
July 15th,
At 4
Wednesday,
o'clock?
4 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So you've got to give a pint, yes, before, no pie.
No pie
You
that
know?
week. No.
You want to go Tuesday the 14th then?
Okay,
Okay.
okay. All right,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate everybody's time and energy tonight. Jeannie, if you need anything, let us know, okay?
We will. Thank you.
Thank you.